Should Treyarch add Easter eggs to zombie maps after they've been released? Would that ruin the integrity of the map itself? Or could it be a way of adding replayability to the entirety of zombies throughout the year? Let's answer that on the first episode of Dear Treyarch. Good morning, you beautiful people, and welcome to the first episode of Dear Treyarch. This is a brand new series aimed at talking directly to Treyarch, taking all of our feedback in one nice, neat little place that we can communicate to the developers. We're going to try to keep this as short and condensed as possible, and for our first episode here, we have to observe the second episode of the COD Pod. In the second episode of the Call of Duty podcast, Mr. Dalek JD played a special guest, and he asked this question.
Kevin, can we expect, over the course of the seasons, older zombies maps, launch maps, new DLC maps? Can we expect them to get updates, potentially new Easter eggs, new features, new perks, something to keep them fresh?
Yeah. So I would say, there's no current plans in the short term, but that's something I'm always interested in. And I'm actually curious to get your thoughts on, is that something you want? Preserving a game, the map as it is. How do you feel about that? Because now it's kind of become a different experience. You can never go back to the other version.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a really great question. So, that wasn't what I had in my head, but now...
that's just an example of something like that, right? Easter eggs and things like that. That sounds really cool. Definitely keeping an open mind on that.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Pretty simple question and a pretty simple answer as well. Are there any plans for the launch maps and DLC maps to get continuous updates as the year goes on? And in my opinion, unfortunately, Kevin Drew says there are no current plans for that. But Kevin is inquisitive about John's perspective and possibly everyone's perspective on this. And this is what I wanted to talk about here in episode 1 of the series. Now, I have absolutely no idea what goes on in the studio of Treyarch whatsoever, but it does sound like this is a topic that they discuss continuously. It sounds like it's not the first time Kevin has said this. Obviously, they could have practiced for the podcast and whatnot, but it really certainly feels as though he's like, what about the preservation of the original map and its meta and all of that stuff, which I think is actually a very noble thing to think about. I think we'll see this question posed and be like, oh man, it would be great if it was updated, but he does have a good point. How many times can you update a map, or what can you update a map without it changing or altering the identity of that map? And for as noble and good and intelligent that question is, we first have to acknowledge that this is nowhere near the first time we're thinking about updating a map after it's been launched, especially in this Dark Aether timeline. After all, every single zombie map got an update with every single new piece of equipment, new killstreak that was introduced into Cold War Zombies. Flamethrower gets released, it's in all of the different maps. Casimir mechanism releases for Marauder Toten, it gets released in all the different maps. ArcXD, whatever gets released in Forsaken gets released on all of the different maps. Not to mention the Super Easter Egg. The Super Easter Egg where if you complete all of the main quests, you go to Zoo in the Outbreak part of the map, and then you get to activate the Super Easter Egg, and you automatically have an epic rarity weapon on every single map. And if you want to take it even a step further, you have Infinite Warfare Zombies Director Mode. These updates really substantially change the core of what these maps play like. The Machine plays differently today than it did at launch. Having Casimirs and Flamethrowers and I believe even Death Machines. Could you get a Death Machine at launch? I don't know if you could get a Death Machine at launch of Cold War. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. In terms of the credibility of the map, we've already had instances of that credibility be taken away through Cold War. Now, maybe we're not talking about that. Maybe we're not talking about the core mechanics within the crafting table itself. Maybe that's its own isolated thing that we think about differently. Let's talk about actual Easter eggs, because they have also retroactively added in Easter eggs to zombie maps as well pretty recently. Most notably, in my opinion, they added in a few, I think maybe 1 or 2 side quests to Shinonuma Reborn. There's a zombie you need to kill with a specific type of weapon outside the map, and then you get some salvage and stuff out of it. It's not the best side quest, it's pretty okay, and it's the only side quest on the map, so it is an isolated incident. But they also did add a hidden side quest in Marauder Toten where if you throw down frag grenades or some sort of grenades in the sewer cover, the manhole cover down there in Marauder Toten in the center of the map, occasionally you would get some extra salvage and equipment, all that stuff, and a free Casimir, I think it is. So technically, yes, we have already seen these little side Easter eggs be implemented into round-based maps after they've launched. That being said though, none of these changes or additions or whatever really truly did change the identity of a map. So when talking about this, we really don't have an example of an Easter egg or something that was added to the map that really changed how the map has been played. We don't know what too far is because we've never had anything that's too far. That being said, I think I am going to personally answer this question for myself directly to Treyarch, because this is Dear Treyarch. I would be perfectly happy with additional side quests so long as they were additive. For example, on Cold War Zombies, you can have all 4 different variations of the DIE Wonder Weapon at launch. In my opinion, the darkest timeline of this system is that round-based zombies now launches with less content and then drip feeds the content throughout the season. So in this darkest timeline, what I would not want to see is I would not want to see a reality where, say, D Machina comes out and hey, we have just the regular DIE, and then season 1 you get the fire variant, and then season 2 you get the ice variant, and then season 3 you get the electric variant. That would be the worst implementation of the system, because obviously we want this to add content, not supplement content throughout the seasons. If the map is a completed product, like a Der Eisendrache or Ancient Evil even, those 2 examples specifically to me because I love those maps, they're very full and complete maps. However, I feel like they're lacking on the side quest department. So if during Black Ops 3, where we've had Der Eisendrache, we've had Setsubo, we've had Gorod, if Revelations comes out, and just because Revelations out, maybe they add in another side quest, maybe a smaller side quest in Der Eisendrache, that really wouldn't be that big of a deal to me. But the question then becomes, again, for everybody, and this is what Kevin is asking, so what impact does that side quest have, and how big of a side quest to be added is too big? For example, there are 4 bows in Der Eisendrache. Maybe as the seasons progress, what if they added in a 5th bow quest? What if they added in a way to upgrade your Pegasus strike in Ancient Evil? How in the world, as the consumers, how could we tell if they supplemented, if they drip fed us that content and it should have been there at launch, versus no, that is additional content to the map? And once again, how much content is too much content to add to change the dynamic of the map? If down the seasons they added in, I don't know, elemental Margwas to Der Eisendrache, would we appreciate that, or would we not like that because, hey, Der Eisendrache has played this way for 8 months, now you've just changed the entire way it plays and we can't go back? If in D Machina they added in Manglers and Mimics and Tempests to D Machina, even though it launched with just the Megaton as well as just the play counts, I don't think people would like that. But then what if they added in a separate main quest? What if you still had the original main quest, but now they added in a different one? How would we feel about that? To me, that's kind of exciting. That's actually kind of cool. For example, in Black Ops 3, if Revelations came out and then all of a sudden all of the old Easter eggs were updated to where it was kind of like Black Ops 2, where you could choose between 2 different paths and you can change the outcome of Revelations, that sort of super Easter egg is kind of what Infinite Warfare Zombies did, and it's kind of what the community was asking for during Black Ops 3. However, after really thinking about it for a lot more time than I really should and talking about it out loud, the only negative thing that I could really see about this kind of live service model is, of course, like we said, how do we determine whether or not this is just drip feeding content that should have been there on launch versus actually adding to the map and all that stuff? And number 2 is adding in different bosses. I feel like those are the 2 negatives that I can think of about this whole system. Adding in different things on the crafting table, adding in different wonder weapons, adding in different main quests even, I feel like in their own ways could be a huge positive. I mean, earnestly think about what if they added a bow to Der Eisendrache today. Sure, we would never have the Der Eisendrache that it launched with, but everybody and their mother, including myself, would be playing Der Eisendrache and making guides and tutorials, and there'd be so much hype around this new wonder weapon. And if we're talking about preserving the experience, well, most of these zombie maps at launch are an entirely different experience than months down the line. Shadows of Evil being a fantastic example. The way you interact with zombies, the way you interacted with the rituals, the way Margwa spawned in and how you did these things, those fundamentally changed from launch to a couple months down the line. Gobblegum worked differently. Now, I don't think that is exactly what Kevin's talking about, but I think it's a fair point to bring up that these maps do change over time because the community changes over time. We develop different strategies. We figure out how to min-max all of the things. That's just kind of what we do. But I think my question, and I think Kevin's question to you beautiful people are, the community is, How far is too far? What are the things that they can't change about a map that we wouldn't want them to change about a map? And what would be things that we do want them to change? What would be things that would be an additive bonus to the map rather than being supplemental and drip fed and taken in a negative way? And truly, how do we know if something is being just drip fed and stretched across the entire lifespan and season of Zombies versus additive content that actually builds upon what was already meant to be there at launch? Personally, I feel like continuously updating new maps, like I said, with Horizon Draha, everybody would be playing it. So I feel like there is an overwhelming positive aspect to new Easter eggs and new side quests to old maps, especially maps that you may not have had time to work on. You may not have had time to develop side quests. Even if it's a fun little jump scare Easter egg, even if it's a little cipher, a piece of intel, I feel like adding in content post-launch could be a really big benefit to the community. After all, that's basically what we've been doing this entire year with Modern Warfare 3 Zombies. Please write down your earnest, honest comment in the comment section below, but of course remember to always be professional, kind, and considerate. The goal of this series is obviously to talk to the Treyarch developers, so please be as professional as you possibly can. Now, if you cannot get enough about people talking about Black Ops 6 Zombies, boy, I have the perfect video for you right here. Nearly 2 hours of a podcast dedicated to everything we know about Black Ops 6 Zombies. Check it out, enjoy, and stay beautiful.